So now we've got a nice little interface happening. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to speed up the progression, like the speed at which this goes across. That's basically what we want to do. But if we speed it up, we're also going to have to update our ticks as well. Update our seconds. We're basically going to have to double the length, the width between them. So we're going to have to update that in a few places. The first place is the 1 second ticks. So everything stays the same except the gap. So the gap is going to now be 12, and this gap is now going to be 120. Let's have a look at that. That should double the ticks. Yep, that worked. Definitely did work. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I like the ticks how they were before. I like the intra ticks better how they were before. Actually, I'll change that later, but I'm going to update the text seconds. So I'm going to come back to our text, and I'm going to put this at like 11, should do it. And then instead of times that, it's going to be, instead of times 60, it's going to be times 120, because we're moving at 60 frames per second, and now we want to update, we want to shift along 2 pixels per frame. So that'll be 2 times 60, 120. Let's see if that gives us what we, yep, 100%. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4. That looks great. Okay. So, and I'm gonna update these intra ticks. So I'm gonna double them because I think that looks a little bit better. So it's not going to be 1/10 of a second. It's going to be 1/20th of a second now, because I think that looks a little bit nicer. So go again. There we go. So the intra ticks are a little there. I've doubled the number of ticks in between, and I think that looks more aesthetic. That's more aesthetically pleasing to me. I like that a lot better. But we haven't actually increased the speed of anything yet. So the next, we've got to update the speed of. Come down here to our draw, and inside of our draw, what we're going to do is we're going to put in a loop. We're going to update the speed of our wave first, nothing else. I'm just going to see what that looks like, which should look very interesting. Actually, so it'll be adding our window twice. That should be fine, but it will be flying past. It should be flying past a lot quicker. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so our top up here looks really cool. So this is going twice the speed now, and this is the speed that we actually want. So we're going to speed up the spectrogram as well to match it. So the way we do that is we put that in there, but we're going to need to grab that window as well. And we don't need our window to be printed in here anymore. That's a waste of time, but we're still going to print the number of available buffers, no matter what. Now, let's see what that looks like. It's flying by, but we've got that problem that I tried to illustrate a little while ago. We've got lots of these gaps here. See, it's missing, it's got lots of holes in the data. See, whenever we have a 0 in the number of available buffers, now we have a gap here. Now, the reason that we have this is because, as I said, we're running out of buffers and it's still scrolling along at the same speed. We don't want to change the speed in any frame, no matter what, because we want a consistent, smooth animation. Even if we miss, like even if we don't have a buffer available, what we're going to do now is we're going to fill in that gap with just some, whatever the previous slice was, we're going to add that, whether it's the spectrogram or whether it's the wave. And I'll show you what that looks like in a sec. Actually, first thing we're going to do, so the hop, remember our good old friend, the hop size? So if we change the hop size, remember here, this is our hop, this distance here is our hop size. So we had this three, just imagine we had 3 frames per second, but now we need to halve it. So we need our windows to be hopping a little bit less of a distance. And then if we do that, we won't have these gaping holes anymore. But we're going to get it really, really close, but we're still going to fill in any gaps with the method that I just talked about, where we're going to fill in, we're going to use whatever the last value was, we're going to use that. So with this, first thing we do, we're going to halve this, which will be 150 plus 35, that'll be 185. So we save that. Let's round it down. Actually, let's round it up. Let's go 188. Now we shouldn't have that problem really at all anymore. See, it's going by. I'm trying to find when this, so this should go down. It'll take a while actually. See, it's going down. It was 80 something, now it's 70 something. Soon it'll be 60 something. And it's taking too long. So I'm going to increase the hop size to 200. Let's go 200. Then it'll run out a lot quicker. So 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, and then soon we're going to start getting gaps. See, we've got a few. Yep, we're starting to get them now. As you can see them here. Not many of them, but we are definitely starting to get them. Okay, so you saw them there. I'm going to fix them, and this is just an aesthetically pleasing type of way of dealing with it. In the real world, if you're going to use this for something like, you know, taking audio and converting it to a spectrogram and then feeding it into a convolutional neural network sort of thing, you wouldn't necessarily you wouldn't care about like nice looking animation sort of purposes. Like you wouldn't really care about that. But for our purposes, because we are vain and we do care what it looks like. I mean, you know, we do want it to look pretty and we want it to look perfect. We don't want any of those little gaps. So we're going to go to our spectrogram, and the way we're going to do it is, so we've got this slice here, this self.slice. We're going to keep track of whatever the slice was last time. So I'm going to change this code here. This is always going to be using the actual whatever the currently saved slice is, right? But I'm going to remove this. I'm going to swap these around. So self.slice is equal to the slice. So the self.slice is going to be set to this new one, and then we're just going to use it as normal. But if the window is none, we're just going to use whatever the previous one was in the previous frame. So when we do that, we should definitely have no gaps no matter what when it starts to run out. So when this runs down, remember this is happening because our hop size is very slightly bigger than it should be. And then once we get down here, there's absolutely no gaps whatsoever. So we solve that little gappy problem, right? So it might not seem like important, but you know, this, I'm like weirdly like, you know, it's got to be right. It's got to be right. You know, it's got to be right, bro. You know, so yeah. So now we can go back and we can put our hop size back to what it was, or not what it was, but we can go back and put it to 188 is a good number. So it's just a little bit faster than it should be. That way, if we have a delay in our recorder, then it will eat into that delay, and then it will become real time eventually. Actually, we'll go 190. 190. And then we'll do it again. And there we go. So it might seem like a, you know, like an unimportant point, but as I said, I like to get it sort of as, you know, it's like a perfectionist. It's got to be right. You know what I mean? It's got to, you know, and you should be too. Like if you're a programmer, you're a serious programmer, and you're not like, it's got to be perfect, bro. What are you doing? It's got to be, you know, it's got to overtake your soul in an unhealthy way. You know, you got to love it that much. You know what I'm saying? Anywho, so we've got to do the same thing to our wave up the top, even though we can't really see the problem the same way we could with our spectrogram, but just do it anyway. And we'll do something very similar where we'll come here and we'll have a self.sample, and we'll just say that's equal to 0.002, which is really, nice, really small value. And then when we have one, we'll say self.sample, and then when we actually use it, we'll use whatever that self.sample is. And that should be it. That should have fixed it. Okay. It's looking absolutely gorgeous. It's looking incredible. Like I have delivered you to the promised land. Like, this is incredible. Like, I love looking at this. I have spent like an untold amount of time, just looking at my own voice. Like, not my own voice, but like all sorts of sounds. I've got my girlfriend in to talk about, just to hear her, like see the difference between my voice, her voice. It's just such a mesmerizing thing to look at. I absolutely love looking at it. Like, it's just great.